Okay, I guess we can start. Very good evening, everyone, and good evening, Mr. Prashant. I am Professor Vandana from the School of Basic Sciences, the Department of English. And this week's Industry Connect session, we have with us Mr. Nishant Chaudhari, who's the Vice President and the Head of Data Science at Eduvance Company. Mr. Nishant specializes and has a very keen interest for data analytics, along with data visualization, AI, and machine learning, among many others. Mr. Nishant also has a wide range of experience across many top-tier industries, including Grameener, Tech Mahindra, and also a good amount of research experience, I believe an internship experience from the Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions. He's currently is also the manager at NIUM and acts as a data analyst there. We're very happy to have you here, sir, today with us. We look forward to a very interesting session with you. May I now hand over the session to you, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Vandana ma'am, for the warm introduction. And I would really like to thank the faculties and the college member for having me here. Thank you so much, students, for joining in. I'm really looking forward for an interesting session. I believe 1 hour would be a very short span, considering we are trying to have a hands-on session. So I would like to stick to our content. I would request everyone to focus on what exactly we are discussing and we are doing in the course of time. And the last 5-10 minutes, we'll try and have any questions which is coming across either on the code or on the logic and on the use cases. Okay, so we'll stick to that plan. So let me start sharing my screen, and if anyone can quickly confirm if you're able to see my screen.
Yes, it's
visible. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, great. So see, today's topic that we have for our discussion is that this is my second conversation with the college. I am not sure about the batch, the students I'm interacting with, but yeah, it is quite a pleasure to interact with people and the students who are taking interest in AI, machine learning, and deep learning, and so on. This is the stream which is currently used in the industry across different domains, as my experience is also into various domains, be it pharma, telecom, IT, or investment banking, as well as fintech. So I've been handling a different kind of data set, be it normal textual data or images, videos, or numerical data, and so on. So I've been handling these different data set, taking the insights out, making meaningful insights, and taking business decisions, working in strategy, and so on. So I think we can definitely discuss about how the career progression also works into the AI part. And for today's discussion, which is predominantly focusing on customer behavior, I will discuss about the industries where we are touching AI in general from the customer behavior perspective, and what are the best use cases and the best practices from the AI perspective that we all are using in this particular domain. Okay, so we talk about customer behavior. Okay, so customer in general. So I'll just use the particular page just to discuss about some field pointers, and then we will start with our session. Meanwhile, for everyone's reference, you can do one thing. You can log on to this telco customer churn data from Kaggle. This is what we are going to use in our today's session. So in case if you want to do practice in parallel, feel free to do that, or else you can check the recorded version as well and then practice it in your free time. Okay, so the telco customer churn on Kaggle, that's the link of the data that we'll be working on, and we'll be working on the churn prediction. Okay, yeah, so coming back over here, so see, we are discussing about customers, right? There are different industries where we have direct customers, and the company are working in B2C sectors, right? So when we talk about customers, there are banks, right? Then apart from banks, we have FMCGs, right? Like Britannia, ITC, Parley, and these industries, right? Banks, we have HDFC, ICICI, and all these banks who have direct customers, right? Similarly, we have telecom, right? Where we are using Bharti Airtel, or we have Jio as different business partners and companies who are exposed to customers in general, right? So the one thing which is very important in the sectors of bank and telecom in general, apart from FMCG, is that they are very customer centric, and they are having a lot of impact on their businesses and their profits based on customers' behavior, right? Because it's a huge cost that they generally incur or for getting the customers on board, right? So when they have huge cost to get the customers on board, that means customers acquisition cost is really high in these areas compared to FMCG and other sectors, which is just like you go to a next any particular door shop and you buy a particular product, which you generally don't focus more into the kind of product. You take any other products as well, like for medicines as well, right? You look out for content, you don't look out for a particular brand. Like in case if you are looking for a cream biscuit, generally you have a particular biscuit, otherwise you are okay with other offering on the similar lines as well. But when it comes to banks and telecom, they spend huge amount in their marketing and their targeting for the specific right of customers, and then they pay a huge amount for the affiliates and in between players to get the customers onboarded. So there is always a huge cost at the start of any particular business to get the customers onboarded. Once the customer is onboarded, there are different services that a customer is using, right? These services are sometimes unique, right? And sometimes it is common, right? Like all other banks are giving you FDs, all other banks are giving you the RDs or saving account, current account, and so on. The only differentiating factor is the rates that they are offering. Generally, they are also pretty much common or on the same lines, but there is a very important metric that the customer or the particular company is focusing on is customer retention, right? Because there is a huge cost for onboarding, right? So because of that, the customer retention is equally important for them to have a profitability in the business, right? So they see that customer lifetime value, they call it customer lifetime value. They call this thing, we solve for it, we see that how much time a customer lives in the system, right? And how much value a particular customer generates, so that the acquisition cost and other things are being justified. So as this particular field is pretty much competitive, right? There are so many players into it. So the companies are focusing more on to how we can leverage data science, or we can leverage any advanced level of analytics or machine learning or deep learning algorithms to understand our customer behavior in a way that we can have better retention. We'll be able to have a better predictability when it comes to customer churn. And customer churn is nothing but a customer moving out from our business and joining our competitors, or even just moving out of the business, so they are no longer our customers, right? So that is a very important and a very focused area which all the companies are focusing on to. Along with that, there is also customer voice, right? Which the companies are focusing on in terms of understanding how to understand customer voice. For this, there are different analysis and the areas that we generally work on to. If we get a chance in future, we'll definitely explore this as well. Here we generally talk about the sentiments. Okay, we talk about the customer sentiments on various platforms, be it on our app, in case if we are having our own mobile app, be it on iOS and Android, or else we look into Glassdoor, right, to understand our employees' voice in terms of how employees are feeling about the company and the perks and the offerings. And we also look into the reviews on portals like Trustpilot or consumer forums and so on. So here we try and understand the sentiment of our customers, whether they are happy, they are sad, they're angry, they're not satisfied with their offering, what kind of changes they want. So there is a different area where the customer centric analysis is being done to understand what our customers are talking about and what is something that we can improve on, and we can also do competitor analysis, try and focus on to what our competitors are doing, and whether we can replicate the elements or not, right? So this is a different element when we talk about customers voice, as in taking the direct comments from customers, right, and taking actions. There is the another field which is indirect access. Okay, what is indirect information? Which you will see the patterns, right? We will see the pattern from their behavior. And this behavior is nothing but the transaction behavior. If like in banks and telecom, you will see how many times they are doing transactions, at what kind of demographics that we have for the customers, what is their age, income profile, marital status, uh, and for how long they are there in the business, what is their frequency of doing the business, what is the monetary value that they generate, and so on. So this is something that is the behavior from our business, that we can understand our customers, and basis that we will have a predictability of whether we'll be able to understand our customers in a better way or not, and what kind of analysis that we can do. Okay, so having said that, the another important thing which we'll take into this consideration is that, let me just take this thing out. Okay, so another important point is that when we talk about, now we are focusing more into churn. Okay, so we know that our focus is on to churn, which is from our customer behavior that we are trying to figure out. We will try and see whether we have any predictability and we are able to understand our customer properly. For this, there are different more algorithms that we can use under the umbrella of data science and AI, right? You can do regression, you can do classification to bucket the customers into specific group. We can do clustering to understand different groups based on their behavior and not from a predefined class. Then we will also try and do the basic form of data analysis based on what has actually happened in the past and descriptive analytics. And the last part is we can do deep learning and artificial intelligence, right? So deep learning and artificial intelligence is nothing but based on neural network. Okay, what is neural network? It is like, in simple terms, it is to mimic how the human brain works, with the hope that we can build a machine that behaves like a human, right? So because our brain is also being formed with various neurons, right? So in case if you have the architecture of the neuron and all, you understand that how neuron stores the information, pass on to the other another neurons, and how the information is circulated, and we understand a particular situation, take the decision, act upon it accordingly. So human brain has always been a mystery to understand how the memory is being associated, and how the transfer of information and taking the call is being structured in a way. Similarly, we have now in the science that we are understanding how the neural network can be understood with the help of hidden layers, right? And these are like, you see there are multiple hidden layers, and the output layers are there, which is connected to each of the node, right? The information from each of the sensor is being added to each of the node, and the information is passed accordingly. It This is how we talk about a neural network, and it understands in that sequence, right? There are different combinations that it think, there are different combinations that then action can be taken, and then the final output is being given as a real output, and then match it with the human behavior, right? This is the architecture in general for a neural network is, and we will study the basic form of neural network, which is ANN. Okay, this is nothing but artificial neural network, and which the exact purpose is to behave like human. And they are, and in general, this is how the architecture is. Now I believe that you have already been exposed to machine learning and these algorithms, so we'll not get into the detail of this particular element, and we'll quickly start with our particular use case. Okay, so in this use case, we'll try and understand that if we have a particular business where we have customers and their operations and their activities and that information with us, what kind of different and insights that we can take from the particular use case, right? And then at the end of the session, we will have some assignment or an homework as well, that you can replicate the similar analysis and similar things and participate in the another hackathons, right? So Kaggle and Analytics Vidya is really a great platform to learn new different dimensions of problem statements and understand how you can approach it, right? So we will take this as an example, and then we will proceed. Okay, so we have telecom customers. Okay, we have different data sets. We have few references that we have over here. Okay, so you take this data, you understand what is the data. We have few customers who left. We understand the business in general, right? From this particular page, we'll be also be able to understand what is the specific variables that we have, like starting from customer ID, which is a unique variable. Then we have gender. Then we have whether the particular person is senior citizen or not, whether they are single or married. then they have dependents, their tenure in the business, then whether they have like opted for the phone service or not, whether they have multiple lines, whether they are also using internet services or online security information, whether they are taking that or not, right? This is how your raw data will look like. And at the end, you have their monthly charges and total charges. You might be looking at few information. You see here the monthly charges and total charges are same. So the information that you can infer is that this might be the customer who is recently joined our particular business. And when you go over here and see the tenure, you see the tenure is 1 month. And that is why the total charges and the monthly charges are same for this particular individual, right? So this is how you understand. You see the same example is over here, and then you see whether the particular person is there in the system or not. So to understand the business, what are we doing over here? This is a classification problem, right? This is a classification problem where we are trying to understand whether the customer would stick with the business, or he will, or he or she will leave the business. Now the only information that we have over here is that the customer will not stick with the business. That is fine. This particular customer is still there in the business. This particular customer has left the business. Now what we are trying to do, we know that this person has left. Now we are trying to understand all these factors and try to see whether there is any combination of these variables which will help us to understand our behavior of the customers correctly and take the action from their uh, sticking to the business and moving out of the business or not, right? Generally, you have a lot of variables. Then you have PCA, which is principal component analysis. You reduce the variables to the variables which are important. You see the correlation, you see the autocorrelation, and there are various factors that you use. But here in our particular use case, all these things have been already taken care, and that we will directly focus on to our particular coding directly. Okay, so we'll start with this. Okay, I have removed all the code. I was thinking of writing the code from scratch, but then that will take a lot of time. So I'll just explain every code and the output of it, and then I'll share this particular file with you after the this session, right? So you will have this file also with you. So don't worry, don't take screenshots and all. The recording will also be there. So focus on my screen. Okay, so we are talking about customer churn prediction using artificial neural network. Here we will use TensorFlow and other libraries, but at the start, to get the data onboarded and to see for some of the basic visuals, we will require NumPy, Pandas, and Matplotlib libraries. Okay, so we will load all these libraries into our system. Okay, then we will load the data. This is nothing but the same Kaggle data set that we have just taken, and we are taking just to df.sample5 will tell that only the top 5 value or the sample 5 value will be uploaded over here. Okay, so now whenever we are working on any machine learning problem, the first thing that we will try to do is to do data exploration. Okay, so whenever you get any particular data, what do? You do the data exploration. Okay, so the one thing that you will notice over here is you have the customer ID. Okay, this is an additional unique column, but you will notice that this particular column will not be useful in our analysis, right? Because any unique value or any unique variable, when you try and add it in your data for modeling, that will act as an unique identifier, and because of that your model will either become overfitting or will either tend to underfit, right? So that overfit, to avoid that particular thing, what we will do, we'll remove the customer ID column from our analysis, and we'll have the unique identifier as just the serial numbers and nothing as a unique value over here. Okay, so to do that, what we do, we just use the function df.draw. Okay, so we are reading the CSV using pd.read, and then we are putting it into the data frame. And with this data frame, if we use df.drop, okay, and we call the column name and we keep in place true, this is what we generally put into it as this particular format, right? And then that particular customer ID column is dropped, like the access column is dropped. Now if I put df.d types, it will tell me what is the object type, like is it integer, is it float, is it object, which is categorical variable, and so on. So that is very important for us when we try and look into the EDA perspective on this, right? So when we run this, you see the df.d type tells me that number one, customer ID is not there, right? It is not there. Now, when we try and focus over here, you see the monthly charges is float, but the total charges is object. Technically, when you look into the data, you see over here, we have monthly charges, which is in float, as in it is in decimal, right? And the total charges is also in decimal. So it has to be in the same data type. But here, our total charges is an object, which is like a text field, right? Like a categorical field. So why is it happening? Okay, so we have to understand that particular element. So if we have to understand this thing, what we will do is we'll use that particular value, which is our total charges. So I will put this df total values dot values, the overall values. Okay, so when I put this up, you see over here that the information that I have is 29.85. Okay, it looks like the same information to me, right? And then let me try and see if we have any other element as well. So you see the data type object is there. Now, if I, instead of total charges, if I try and put monthly charges, let me try add that as well. We can use any particular formula. You see here, the object type here, it is not coming as an object, right? The data type is not object. Here it is number only, but earlier it was not that number. Why is that happening? Because the string, it has been added because there is a space in between, and there are null values as well. So if there are null values, that will not affect the data type. But when there is a space between numbers, when there's a space at the start or at the end and all, that will add these particular problems, right? The spaces and all we have to remove, right? So we have to understand that bit as well. So now what we will do, when you see a particular variable which is in a different format and you have to convert it into your numerical format, what you will do, you will use pd to numeric function. Okay, so which is this function. So when we do that, we will get a particular error. Okay, let's see that. You see here, I'm getting this error. Why am I getting this error? So in general, when you go through a particular flow in the book or in a specific flow, you will always see that this is a standard flow that you have to follow. And in between, if you are stuck because of some problem with the data or the problem with the approach, you will not be able to understand how to solve for that. And that is the current opportunity that I want to take, that I will tell you what kind of problems that we generally face when we work on the exploratory data analysis and what kind of inferences we have to take. So initially, we found out that we have to check the data type. We have to figure whether it's right or wrong. We know that, okay, this has to be in a particular float format. Otherwise, all the calculations and other things, the statistical imputation will not work. Now, when we try to convert it directly to numeric form, we see that that is also not happening, though the code is right. pd.toNumeric is what we have to write down, nothing else. When we write it, we see that unable to pass string at the position 488. Okay, that means there is some information which is having space in between. You see here the null values. So that information is having numbers in between. Okay, and in that particular information, let me show it to you. So if I remove this bit, okay, now if I run this, you see this particular information is telling me for each of the value, all the values I will get as it is. Okay, whatever the value is there, the course error function will tell us that, okay, wherever we have the number, we see that the float values are there, how many total length of the particular variable is there, we will see actual numbers. Now, if I want to focus on whether the particular value is null or not, as in, do I have a missing value over there? Because that is something that we have to do. We have to figure out what are the outliers or missing values and so on as well. So if I have to find out that bit, what I will do, the same formula at the end, I'll write dot is null and I will rerun. Now you see the numbers that I was getting after converting it into the particular format using the course error formula. Now we are converting it into each particular number, or whatever the value the text field was there, we have converted into number. And now, as we are right now only focusing on the top 5 and the bottom 5 numbers, we are actually not getting the actual information wherever we have spaces or wherever we have the missing values. Now we have to find out how can we get the direct numbers which are having null values. Here we are not able to find out the information that we have as a null values. So what we will do, we will use the same formula, which is your PD2 numeric, right? DF total charges is null, and the same formula will put it into a data frame df dot this. What are we doing? Understand this function. We are doing the same calculation, this PD2 numeric, just to convert that particular variable into numeric, and then focus on whether we have the value is null or not. And here, if the value is null, that will return true. If the value is not null, it will return false. Now, as we are getting all the values, we are not focusing on where exactly is the true. So we are converting, we are calling that up in the square bracket and calling as a df. So right now, what we will have, we will get this value which has true into it as an output will be returned into the data frame. You see here. So if you focus here, the error that we were getting unable to pass string at position 488 was highlighted. That means at 488 serial number, the position, we are having this value, which is our total charges, as blank. And this space, because of this space, the null values are there and we are not able to proceed further, right? And how many such values are there? You see, these are the unique values. Okay. So there are 11 rows overall. Okay. So if I have to find out how many rows are there, I will just use dot shape. So you see, out of 7043, out of 7043, we are getting this particular row as out of 7,000 rows, we are having only 11 rows which are having missing values. So what we can do, two things. We can delete these rows which are having missing values, or else I can replace it with a specific value, which can be generally, if it is a numerical field, we use mean or median. If it is a categorical value, we use mode. And this is a very interesting interview question that generally people are not able to answer, right? I'll help you understand this bit again with better understanding. You see, when you are having age of your customers, and in that you forget to capture the age of the customer, but you have the other information. So what are the ways, if the missing value is more than 15-20%, you cannot remove the particular value from the analysis. You have to still keep it. So for in that particular situation, you will check what is the mean age of your particular data, and you will replace it with that age. Or else, in case if it is not having a larger spread of the data, you can replace it with the mean. But suppose now if you are having gender as an information, which is your male and female, in that also, if you are having more than 30% as, or more than 20% as your missing value, so what we can do, you can actually add that particular gender, which is common, which is mode. Mode is what? The most occurring value. So if you are having 80-20%, 80% is male, 20% is female, or 80% is female and 20% is male, you will replace the missing values with female. Because any which way, the 80% dispersion or the probability of having that particular gender is already very high. And if you replace it with that particular information, nothing like it, right? So this is how statistical imputation works. Now, when you are working as a student of machine learning and AI, what you can do, you can treat that particular variable as your dependent variable and treat all other variables as independent variable and predict what would be the gender of that individual, given that that person is having this age, this is the marital status, these are the number of kids earning, the salaries, and all other things. And you will be able to better predict than just the statistical imputation, right? And this is the best way to deal with these such missing values in general. Okay. So now, suppose now I have this particular location, which is 488. If I use ilog function, okay, if I use ilog function, Rest is the same. Df dot total charges is nothing but just focusing on that data frame for the variable which is total charges. If I'm focusing over here and if I put ilog, it will log that particular location and it will give me that row information. Okay. Now you see here, I am getting this information. There is a space. There is a space bar over there. It is not like there is no value. It is not NA. Okay. There's a space over there. And because of that, the issue is arising. So how do we generally drop these things? First, we have to understand what are the null values, what are the errors, what kind of special characters are there which we have to remove. When we understand that, we know that there is a space which is an issue. So what we'll do, we'll first figure it out. Okay, the dot shape. If I run this code, it will tell me, you see here, how many such variables are there which is not having, okay, this sign, the exclamation and equal to means not equal to these spaces. So that means out of 7043, we are having 7032 as our unique variables without the space bars into it, which is nothing but the 11 as our values which are having this particular value. So if I remove this not equal to, oh, sorry, I am, okay. Oh, so when I just remove that particular bit, now if I have removed this element, I have kept this particular location as charged over there. Now, if I use this element with this space, I will see an error. Now what we will do, first we have to remove this. Okay. And then I will see the data type. I see the total charges is still object. Okay. So for that, what we will do, we will convert this first data type. So what we have done, we have created a new data frame. That data frame we have added as you see here, wherever it is not equal to spacebar. And with this, now from our earlier data frame of 7043, it is now reduced to 7032. That means we have removed the spaces in between. So there are different ways to do the same thing, right? You can use trim function as well. You can remove the blanks as well. You can remove these particular serial numbers as well. So there are different ways. What we have selected is that we have just selected not equal to the space bars which we are getting, and this is what we are getting as an output over here, that this location has having this field and this is what is unique. And when we use this, we left with the same 20 columns and 7032. And now if we check the data types, it is again coming as object. It has to be float, right? But earlier when we were running the code, we were converting it into float, we were getting this error, right? PD dot to numeric, we were getting this error because of 488 position of having spaces. Now if I run this the same code and store the same value, you see here, okay, so we get whatever the value that we are getting as a float. Okay, so let me try and see whether we are having the float values or not. So if I run this info, okay, it is great. The value, whatever the so you see here, these are nothing but the value that we generally get as it is. Okay, so there is just a warning. There is nothing required from our action to be taken. Okay, so we have converted that particular PD dot to numeric and then we are done. Okay, now what we will see, let me try the D types as well. Let me just focus over here as well. Now you see here, instead of the values, suppose if I try and use the D types, you see the total charges is now converted to float, even with a warning, but it is converted to float now. Earlier it was object. Now let's just focus on some another variable which is important that we have to focus on. Okay, now let's see. Tenure is a very important variable. Okay, we have very limited variables over there, right? So what we are focusing over here, why tenure is important, this is from a business perspective. How many loyal customers are leaving us, right? Tenure means how many like how much time you are there in the business. So if that is your concern, we have to also focus on how many of our loyal customers are leaving, right? The customers who are there in the system for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and they are leaving. So we have to focus on those customers, and that is a business value, right? That is where the business would focus more into. If there are two kind of attritions, like the early life and the long term. So the early life, when they got onboarded and then they leave quickly, that is where they have the early attrition. The other time is when they were loyal, when they were there in the system for one more than 1 year. So the loyalty depends on different kind of businesses. Some businesses call loyal customers when they have minimum 11 months transactions, be it just one transaction in every month. Some particular businesses call customers loyal when they have frequency of transaction or not the months, and so on. So it depends on different business to business. Here in our case, we'll focus on how many of our loyal customers are leaving. And for that also, we have to figure out, we will try and draw a histogram and we'll try and figure out how many such customers are leaving. So here, when you have to focus on how many such values are there when we are having the churn as no, you see here, there are 5,000 rows where we are having customers, okay, who are not leaving. So out of 7,300, somewhere around, we are having 5,000 record of customers who are not leaving. Okay, so that means the customers who are not leaving the organization and are there as a loyal customer. Okay, so now for this, now suppose if these are our customers, so here if we try and focus on tenure, you see this customer is there for 1 year, he is not leaving. This customer is for 45 months, this particular person is for 72 months, and so on, and that particular person is not leaving. Tenure, you have to figure out whether it is year or month and so on. So that is a business level information that we have to figure out. Now suppose if we are putting it up for a tenure for this same customers, we'll try and put it as a tenure. Okay, so what are we doing? You see here, for tenure as well as for churn, we will join these two and we'll create a new variable which will tell us the tenure as well as the customer, whether the individuals is going or is not going. Okay, so we are trying to have a discriminant analysis. We're trying to figure out whether from the tenure perspective we are having any implications, or we are able to find anything from our customers leaving or not leaving. So what are we doing? We'll just plot this particular histogram. Okay, and that histogram, let me just put this up quickly. You see here, what am I doing? You see here, this particular code, we are using the histogram for the churn yes and churn no, and all other, the width and all other colors, the green, red, and everything is being added individually to show whether the customer is churned or whether the customer is not churned. So the red color generally means the customer is not churned, and the green color is showing that the customer has churned. Okay, so this is how this code generally means. And at the start, we are taking all this information. We are taking X and Y value as a tenure and the number of customers. So we see the tenure, and you focus, there's one very important insight coming from this. Okay, so what are we saying as an information? We are saying as the tenure increases, the red line increases a lot and the green line is coming down. So that means if you spend more time in the business, okay, so the majority of the customers who are having more than 60 or 70 months and so on, they are not leaving. And the customers who are in the particular system of 0 to 10, so there are almost 800 to 850, these customers are leaving. So the new customers are also coming up, and the customers are going. So that means this is just like a typical business case, right? We are really having some high customers who are joining in and the customers who are leaving us. That's the information that we get. So that means the tenure does impact the particular information over there, right? Now, what we will say, instead of tenure, let's see for the monthly charges as well. So now tenure, we know that, okay, the customers, if they are staying it long, they are having a good you can say association with us, and they're less likely to churn. Only the initial customers are where we have to focus. Now the same code, okay, I'm using the same code. Instead of our tenure, now we are focusing on monthly charges. Okay, that's the only thing that we have added. Instead of tenure, we are using monthly charges along with the churn information, and then we are predicting, or we are looking at the distribution of whether it has any impact on that or not. Okay, and what this particular thing is saying is, so customer who have really high charges, okay, you see they are leaving more, some 80 to 90 to 100, they are leaving more. And the customers who are at a lower monthly charges, they are sticking with the particular you can say the company and so on. Okay, so that means we have to figure out how many such numbers are there. So in general terms, as an exploratory data analysis, we figure out what is the implication of all these tenures and all these codes, and we have to draw around inferences, right? Many of the columns are yes, and there is no we have. Let's see how many of them are having unique values for this. So now to figure out how many unique yes and no's are there, what are we using? We are just using this function where for each of the column in the particular data type, we are trying to find df for column the unique values. So for each of the values, each of the column, we are trying to figure out how many unique values are there. So if I run this code, this is pretty much straightforward, guys. Okay, we are just using dot unique function, and we are just printing that particular variable. Now what are we doing? For each of the variables that we have, like the churn, we have yes and no, gender, we have male and female, right? How many unique values, categories are there in each of these variables? Okay, you will see generally you will not have any numerical variable, because in a numerical variable you will have a lot of values when it comes to looking at the unique value. So that's why we have limited our column data types, which is object. Only the variables which are in object, for them we will try and see the unique values. And when we add that up, now you see what are the different clauses. We have dependent yes and no, multiple lines, no phone service, yes or no, right? There is no line only, right? There is internet services, fiber optic or DSL, or no. So in that also, in yes, there are two categories, right? So there are different classes as well that we have over here. So now we are figuring out all the information which are having unique values. Now some columns have no internet services or no phone service, that we can just remove that as no. Okay, so no phone service and no, that means it is the same information. So what are we saying is, let's just replace no internet service with no, and also the no phone service as no, because I don't want to have three classes for the same information of they are not having the information, right? So sometimes there is manual errors that we have to figure out, and we have to replace that. So if I have to use this, I will use the same thing. I'll replace the field, and then I will select this. Now you see I have multiple lines yes and no only, and for the phone as well, right? Online backup everywhere, it is saying yes and no. Okay, so now one more thing, when we have to work on any particular algorithm and things like that, what we have to do is we have to focus on that the columns that we are focusing on, that should be converted into 1 and 0. Okay, so that is what we have to use over here. Now we have converted everything to that particular element. Okay, so for that, let me just use this function, which is in place 2 for dot replace. So what are we doing? Whenever you see yes values, replace with 1. Whenever you have no values, replace with 0. For what columns? For these columns specifically. We are not doing it for all. We are doing it for this, so that we can use it for histogram. We can do it for any plot and all these things. Okay, so these are called scaling. These are called numbering. These are called, we generally play around with the features of the values that we have. Generally, we were doing it initially for in Excel as well, where we were working on the Excel field. And if you have to do regression or any other analysis, you have to convert all your categorical variables into a specific scale, right? It can be nominal, which is there already. It can be ordinal. It can be rank, right? So that every scale has an important meaning to it. So we have to understand with what particular scale we have to replace it. Now let me just put the unique values now. So we are doing a good progress now. Almost 50% is done. So we got all the value. The cleaning is done. So we have the gender. Okay, the gender male and female is left. Okay, so all elements have been added over there. So suppose all these elements that we are calling in, we can do one hot coding as well. That means instead of having 1010 in the one column, you can have two columns where either you will have one or you will have a zero, or else you don't have any information on that as well. Okay. So now let's see for the gender. Let me figure out how many uniques are there. You see 1 and 0 only. There is nothing else after converting. So we have to figure out whether there are any specific information or not. Okay. So understand the one hot coding as well. I believe that you already know that. So if what is one hot coding is that we just create that particular variables. You see here one hot encoding. What it means, I'll explain it to you quickly. This we generally do for categorical variables. Okay. And this is very important for us from the understanding perspective. So what is this? Let me just help you understand. Suppose there is one particular field which is having what is the region? Region is having north, south, east, west. That each row can take any value from this, right? The fifth value can again be north, then it can be south, and then it can be again north, and so on. So for all these unique values, we first figure out how many such unique values are there. We found out there are 4 unique values. Now what one hot encoding means, instead of this having one column, we will convert this into 4 columns, which is north, south, east, and west. Now we will see the actual values. If it is north, we will keep this as 1, then we will keep the other values as 0. Then for south, we will keep this as 1 and all others 0. Similarly for east, we will keep 1 and all others 0, and so on, right? So this is how we will add all these elements as a separate variable, so that we will have the same classes of 0 and 1 for the classes where we have more than 2 categorical variables. And the importance of each individual class will be able to better understand on the effect on our dependent variable. Okay, this is the reason that we generally add all these variables, and then we understand whether these are impacting the decision or not. Okay, so do that. So if you see the internet service, you see here internet service, we have DSL, fiber optic, and no. Similarly, you see when we have for other information as well, wherever we have contract, we have month to month, 1 year, and 2 year. So all these different classes are there which is having more than 2 variables. So that's why we are not converting just like male and female, we are converting 1 and 0, and for all other variables. So here for more than 2 categorical variable, we'll convert it into one hot encoding. So to do that, we use simple function. We use this variables into the columns for the data frame, and we put this pd.get dummies. Okay, and then we put this as columns as it is. Okay, and then we take the samples. We'll see for all the variables, all 0 1 0 1. Then we will select the data type. Now everything will be converted into integer except the monthly charge and total charges, which is in float because of the pointers. And after that, we try and add that with a scaling part. Okay, so we got all the columns over here. Now you focus here, the internet service, and for contract and for payment method, you see we got all these things. So the variable name has been added automatically. You see payment method, bank transfer, automatic, payment method, credit card, and payment method, electronic check. So all these 3 variables, or you can say the one variable having 3 classes, is now being added as a different class. Okay, and this is the information that we are getting. Okay, so let's just focus on our next elements. So now we have to figure out on the next step, which is your min-max scaling. Okay, what is this min-max scaling? Okay, so suppose when we are having values 0 to 1, or else suppose some values are having 0 to 50, right? So when we have to take different values, like if you are talking about age can take your minimum customer is of 15 and your maximum customer age is of 65. And then you are talking about, suppose you are comparing it with the other variable where age is compared with gender, and gender is having 0 and 1. So you have to convert everything to one scale, so that 0.1 unit change in one variable can be measured on the 0.1 unit change in the another variable. And for to do that, we use min max scalar. Okay. So after doing this, so min max scalar, the same code, and scalar, we do the transformation. And you see here, all the particular element is now converted into 0 to 1, and all the variables which are having a lot of value more than 1 and 0, which is our tenure, and for all other variables which are having more than one values, now these are all converted into the same scale. And this is a very important point. Okay, we have to do scaling when we are working on the modeling perspective. Okay, so now what we will do, we'll create another data frame. What are we trying to do? We are trying to build two different aspects. Okay, this is, I believe that you are already well versed with this concept, but let me just again have a quick revision for you guys. So whenever we work into any of these modeling techniques, okay, so you are having 100% data. What do you do? 100% data with the dependent variable which says churn has happened and churn is not happened. What are you doing? You will convert the 70% data, and then you will see the pattern for all the 70% data and see what is the unique combination, and you will identify this is churn, this is not churn, with this combination this is churn, with this combination this is not churn. And when you understand this, you at the back end you form an equation that, okay, now you give me any set of independent variables. The model will tell you whether with this information the customer will churn or will not churn. That thing, what you will do for your rest 30% data, you will remove that churn field. You will drop this field. You will focus only on independent variables, and then you will predict whether the churn is happening or not. So for each of the variable, you will have your predicted part and your actual part. This is how you will measure the accuracy. So if the predicted says churn, actual is churn, you are having 100% accuracy. The another value, when the predicted is churn, but it was not churn, your accuracy has come down to 50%. Similarly, you will see for all the 30% value, and then you will arrive at a conclusion of what is your actual accuracy, precision, and recall information. Okay, so this is the split that we have to do. So you have to focus on how these elements are there. I believe that you already know this. So we are converting that into the train and shape. We are taking the train and split and all these things from 80 to 20. So right now we are taking the size for 20% and 80%. Okay, and then we are looking at, suppose the X train 10. So I'm just taking from the last 10 values. I'm taking these values. Okay, done. So the length of the columns 2 and all. This is where we will learn about our modeling. This is the bit that we talk about the modeling part. And this is nothing where we will try and focus on the Keras. Okay, so in this, we are using these two libraries, TensorFlow and Keras, where we will focus more on to how to understand, how to add the memory, how to understand each of the neural, how to understand each of the variable change in there. General regression or like logistic regression all will still be able to function in this area, but then that will be biased. Okay, because there it has less memory, it has less, you can say, value into it. So what we generally do with neural network, we can add more brains, we can add more neurons, we can add more memory to it. So here we add, you see, I'm adding the neurons, and then we are having the activation function. Why we use activation function? Just to add the non-linearity into the equation. That means when we have to understand the pattern which is not linear, we use these functions, right? Then we use different functions for the layers like sigmoid and ReLU, where we will focus more on to the optimization. Okay, so there are different activation functions. We generally use ReLU, this is widely used in the area, and then we will use the loss function, and we try and understand, okay, when you have having loss, which is information loss and information, you will see the accuracy over there. So what you will do is you will run all your code. We will try and activate for each of the functions. So epoch is technically it will run for each of the combination. So for each of the combination, it will try and identify what is the accuracy and it will form an accuracy accordingly. Okay, so you should always start with a less epoch. Okay, don't try with a higher epoch, and it will take a lot of time to get it trained accordingly. Okay, you see I have taken 100. So for each of the epoch it is running, it will give you a loss function, it will give you an accuracy, and there are different so as we have different layers, this is the epochs, and we have to see which one it works, and then we have to focus on where is the accuracy going and where we can get the better accuracy. Okay, so now when it is done, what I will do is I will try and run the accuracy test. And when we say in the test, the X test and the Y test, this is 51% and the 76% that we are getting. So now we will try and see, let me just see for the model test, what is the accuracy for each of the row. Okay, for each of the value, what we are getting over there. And we are trying to figure out the accuracy of 0 and 1. So instead of having a pointer accuracy, what we are saying, either we have to have identify the churn is happening or not. So we'll put it into 0 and 1. Okay, so this is something that we have to focus over there. So for each of the predicted values, we have to just figure out if we are saying yes or no, what is the accuracy from the directional perspective. Are we able to better predict these customers? Now, not like a linear regression or a specific function. We are trying to figure it out from a classification perspective, and then we will see if we are trying to build the confusion matrix, whether we are able to build this element or not. So for each of the samples, you see over here, you see 0 and 0, we are getting the right accuracy. You see first 1, 2, 3, we are getting a bad accuracy because of the 0. If it is a right accuracy, it is giving 1, then wrong, then right, and then wrong, and so on. Similarly, we are looking into for each of these Y tests, just like from the prediction perspective, the test side, what is the value that we are getting over there, and the last values, and so on. Okay, so now let's just focus on the classification variable. This is your performance of the overall model. So guys, we had just 2 minutes, like we are extending by 2 minutes. So let's just wait for another 4-5 minutes, and then we'll conclude with our current session. Okay, so this is the value that we have got. What is this confusion matrix? I believe that you have already been exposed to this, right? So what are we saying? The precision and recall, all this information is there. We have to understand what is the accuracy, how to understand this accuracy. How do we read the accuracy? So let me just build this in a confusion matrix like this. So what are we saying? Predicted 1, predicted 0, predicted as churn, and predicted as will stay with the organization. Similarly, the truth was not churn and the churn. So the diagonal part is our accuracy. That means we predicted as 0, not churn. It is actually not churn. We predicted as churn. It has actually churn. So the diagonal values is our accuracy. So for 868 plus 213 divided by the total value is our accuracy. And these two are errors. So right now we are not getting into the detail of it, but you can explore this in your free time. What are the type 1 and type 2 errors and how it is useful for different businesses. Okay, so these are the two errors that we generally talk about. And this is how we generally read over there. Okay, now we have to figure out accuracy. Okay, so let me just add the shape in general. What is the total? 1407, just to understand what the total number is there for this particular test case. So it is 1407. So what am I doing from the accuracy? Simple perspective, 868 plus this value divided by the total value. Okay, let me add this quickly. You see 78% is what we are getting as an accuracy. Similarly, what is precision? We are getting at 83%. What is the precision for 1? We are getting a 63%. What is precision and recall over here? You see over here. So precision and recall means, suppose now we are having information which says that overall accuracy 868 plus 230, which is 78%. But what is your accuracy? What is your accuracy of predicting the right churn information? That means if the customer has left, what is your accuracy of predicting the customer who's going to churn? What is your accuracy of predicting the customer who's not going to churn? So in class, accuracy is also important for us. And because of that, we will try and figure out over here. You see here. So precision for customers who actually churned is 63 only. So we are able to predict only 63% whether they are actually going to churn. But here we are saying precision of predicting whether the customers are not going to churn is 83%. Okay. So overall accuracy will be somewhere around 78%. This is what we are getting the particular information, right? Similarly, we are having recall. This is the other way around. Okay. What is the actual predicted 0 and how many of them is 1? If we are predicted as 1, how many of them are 0? So this is how the precision and recall is there, which we generally call as the other two metrics compared to your accuracy. Generally, it has a little bit biasness in it, right? So the biasness is the class of 0, the class of non-churn, if it itself is having 80% data distribution, the accuracy over there will impact the overall accuracy of the model. So you have to focus on, are you trying to figure out how many of the customers will not churn? Then you will use this model because it has 83% accuracy. But if our focus is to figure out whether the customer is going to churn and to take corrective action, be it offering them some new packages, offering them some new discounted rates, or additional data pack and so on. If that is your concern, you will focus on your precision for class 1 prediction, which is 63%, which is fairly good considering this market where anything above 60% is considered as a real life, as an accurate model. But then you have to do some feature engineering, some hyperparameter tuning to get this thing a little bit better. Okay, so in case if we get more chance to figure it out in future, we will definitely work on it in detail. Now the homework for you guys is to focus on this Kaggle dataset, which is on bank customer churn model, which is again on similar lines. Okay, so this I will just share it with the faculties. They'll forward it to you. You try and see if you can use similar model and then able to get it done or not. Okay, so this is your the homework for everyone, and this is what I will share it with you guys. So we will open our discussion for the question and answer. In case if you have anything, you can put it up on the chat as well, or else you can unmute yourself and we can have a one-on-one session as well. Okay, I'll stop my sharing and I'll take the questions accordingly. Yeah, anyone having any questions in understanding or any other aspect that they want to highlight?
Students, if you should have any questions, please feel free to post it on the chat box, or please ask him after unmuting yourselves.
Okay, I believe either everything is clear or everything is not clear. There cannot be a third state over here. Okay, yes, we'll wait for another 10-15 seconds. If there are no questions, then I'll hand it over to Vandana ma'am. Thank you, Nitin. No doubts. Okay, Vandana ma'am, it looks like everyone is clear. No doubts. So,
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Nishant, for taking your time here. As a part of this, I also want to thank the Department of Computer Science and Engineering for AI/ML and Cybersecurity and Futurance Technologies for conducting and organizing the Industry Connect sessions every Saturday very religiously. We are definitely, of course, very grateful to you as well, Mr. Nishant, for being a part of our Industry Connect session, especially on a Saturday evening. I thank your effort and time that you put into this. Of course, my thanks are also due to Dr. V. Vivek, who's the head of the Department of Computer Science Engineering in AI/ML and Machine Learning and Cybersecurity, and all the team of our faculty members for their support that they offer for all our students here. Thank you, students, also for participating in the session. A very happy weekend and a good night. But I'm just reminding all the students, please try and fill up the survey link that I've posted in the chat box. Please do not forget this.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. I will share the references with the team. They will hand it over to the students.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Very welcome, but I'm reminding you on the survey link, everyone. Please make sure to respond to the same. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Take care. Bye.